Hello students, from today onwards I will start the new chapter, that is chapter number 4, planning. So as till now we learned about the 3 chapters. The first chapter is nature and significance of management. Then second chapter is principles of management. Then third is business environment. Regarding about all those chapters, I have explained each and every concept with explanation, and I have sent an PDF file relating to class notes as well as solved question bank. Hope all of you are wrote all those information regarding about each and every concept in your notes. And let's start the new chapter, that is chapter number 4, planning. So from this chapter, total 7 marks will be covered for your annual examination. Those 7 marks will be divided into 1 marks 1 question plus 2 marks 1 question plus 4 marks 1 question. There will be a 7 marks that is to be covered in your annual examination. 1 marks 1 question, 2 marks 1 question, and for 4 marks 1 question will be there from this chapter. This is about the marks allocation of planning chapter. Before going to start about the details of the syllabus regarding about planning, let's brief out what we learned in chapter number 1. As you know, the management of an organization must perform 5 functions. One is planning, second is organizing, then third is staffing, then fourth is directing, and the fifth is controlling. So each and every work and activity is going to start with the planning function only. So that is why planning is the primary function of management. So here where the planning which describes about the future course of action, that is what is to be done in future, that is to be decided well in advance. That is why planning is called future course of action, where it is future oriented, where the planning provides blueprint of the work regarding about the future activities, where the planning it is just like a blueprint. Say for example, to prepare for your annual examination, you are going to refer the blueprint of the syllabus which is given at the first page of the textbook. So as per that blueprint, you will going to prepare for the examination. Like that, the planning is a blueprint of the works that are to be performed in a future period of time. So that is why planning provides a blueprint of the works that are to be performed in future. Where the planning is done by top level management. As you know, there are mainly 3 levels of management. One is top level, second is middle level, third is lower level, where the planning is a special activity that is to be done by the top level managerial executives, where in a top level we can able to see board of directors, managing directors, CEO of the organization, they are going to prepare the plans for the organization. So that is why planning is a primary function that are to be done by the top level managerial executives. That is why planning is done by the top level management, where the planning is referred as a primary function of management. So primary is nothing but first. Planning is the first function of the manager. Each and every work is to be start with the planning function. That is why planning is referred as a primary function of manager. The next comes, that is very important. Planning is referred as the thinking function of management. So why? Because it requires application of mind, where the planning requires application of mind, that is to foresee the future activities. That is why planning is referred as the thinking function of the management, because of it requires application of mind. We need to assume, we need to estimate, and we need to predict what is going to happen in future. So that is why it requires application of mind. That is why planning is referred as the thinking function of the management. So this is all about the introduction of the planning. So where the planning is a future course of action, where it provides blueprint of the works that are to be performed in future. It is to be done by top level managerial executives. Planning is a primary function of management. Planning is referred as the thinking function of the management. So each and every activity of the business is start with the planning function. So this is about the introduction to the planning. The next, meaning of planning. So what is planning? I already explained in the first chapter, that is under the concept of functions of management. Planning means deciding in advance what is to be done in future. So that is important. So here planning means deciding in advance what is to be done in future. So we are deciding about the future activities well in advance as per the data which are available with us. We are going to estimate, we are going to assume, and we are going to predict the future course of action well in advance. That is called planning. So that is why in simple words, planning means deciding in advance what is to be done in future. If it ask in 1 marks, just do write the answer. Planning is deciding in advance what is to be done in future. So we are deciding the future activities well in advance as of our knowledge and skills and the informations which are available. That is called planning. So in other words, if it asks for 2 marks, means planning means deciding in advance what is to be done. That is, planning means deciding in advance what is to be done, when is to be done, how is to be done, by whom is to be done, and it bridges the gap between where we are and where we want to reach. That is why where the planning is deciding in advance what is to be done, when it is to be done, how it is to be done, by whom the work is to be done, as well as it bridges the gap between where we are at present and where we want to reach in the future. So where it will going to build the future, or it will going to build the gap between where we are and where we want to reach. That is why planning is just like a bridge between the present and the future. So this is about the meaning of planning. So in simple words, planning means deciding in advance what is to be done in future. Say for example, you are studying the second PUC Commerce. After completion of the PUC, you will going to decide the future, whether you want to go for a BCom course, whether you want to go for a chartered accountant course, or whether you want to go for some of the professional courses. You are deciding well in advance regarding about your future education period. So just like that, planning is deciding in advance what is to be done in future. In other words, planning, it means deciding in advance what is to be done, when it is to be done, how it is to be done, by whom it is to be done, and it bridges the gap between where we are at present and where we want to reach. So that is why it is just like a bridge between present and the future aspect of the organization. This is about the meaning of planning. The next definition of planning, in the words of Henry Fayol. So who is Henry Fayol? Henry Fayol is referred as father of general management. He was introduced 14 principles which are effectively applicable to all the kinds of organization for improving administration of the enterprise. That is why, in the words of Henry Fayol, start with double inverted comma, planning is a chalking out a plan of activities, that is, the result is decided in a line of actions that are to be followed, the stages to go through, the methods that we use. This is called the planning in the words of Henry Fayol. Once again I will repeat, Henry Fayol is referred as father of general management. He introduced 14 principles. In the words of Henry Fayol, planning is chalking out a plan of activities. That is, we are listing out the activities relating to the future, and that future activities are to be decided in a sequence. Through the sequence of actions, we are going to achieve the organizational objectives, and while you are achieving the result, while you are getting the result, what are the stages and methods that are to be followed, all those are to be decided in advance. That is called planning. So that is why, in the words of Henry Fayol, so we are now chalking out the line of activities that are to be performed in future. To perform those activities, what are the stages, what are the methods that we are going to use in realizing the future goals and objectives. That is called planning in the words of Henry Fayol. This is about the introduction, meaning and definition of planning. Once again I will repeat, planning means deciding in advance what is to be done in future. It is a primary function of every manager, each and every activity start with the planning function. That is why planning is done by top level managers and it is called the thinking function of management. This is about the meaning and definition of planning.